Good morning, evening, or night, wherever you are. Welcome to WHAM today. Take a deep breath, clear your mind, and let's drift through the whispers of today's world, one quiet thought at a time. As we wrap up Friday, 1st August 2025, let's see what stories are unfolding around us. United States. President Donald Trump's trade policies have escalated, imposing new tariffs up to 41% on imports from numerous countries. These tariffs have created relief for some nations with favorable deals, but caused anxiety for American businesses and consumers. Business groups are confused by Trump's complaints. In response to statements from former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev, Trump moved 2 U.S. nuclear submarines. He also dismissed the head of the Labor Department after a report of slower job growth, while promising new sanctions on Russia and facing pressure to end the war in Ukraine. The U.S. economic landscape is currently volatile. While U.S. LN exports surged in July, recent economic data, including a slower-than-expected job growth report, has led to a dive in U.S. Treasury yields, fueling speculation of a Federal Reserve rate cut in September. The dollar has tumbled as traders bet on rate cuts. The stock market has reacted negatively, with the Dow Jones, Nasdaq, and S&P experiencing significant declines due to tariff worries and weak payroll data. The TX, Canada stock market, also declined significantly, reflecting broader investor concerns. Concerns about Trump's policies have led investors to rethink U.S. market supremacy. Russia. Facing U.S. pressure, Russia is navigating a complex situation. Dmitry Medvedev's warnings prompted Trump to move nuclear submarines, but a Russian lawmaker downplayed the movement, emphasizing Russia's nuclear capabilities. At the same time, Trump promised new sanctions on Russia. Russian manufacturing is experiencing a downturn, with the steepest contraction since March 2022. Despite Western asset freezes, Russia's international reserves have reached a record high. President Putin maintains that Russia is increasing missile production. Putin met with the Syrian foreign minister in Moscow, and Shara was invited to a Russia-Arab summit. Russia could face gasoline shortages despite export bans. The Russian stock market, MOEX, has seen fluctuations in share prices across various sectors. Despite the conflict in Ukraine, Putin has expressed hope for continued peace talks, although Zelensky has urged the West to change the regime in Russia. The Swiss government has expressed great regret regarding the new U.S. tariffs, including a 39% tariff on Swiss imports. The Swiss are seeking a negotiated solution to the tariff hike, which is affecting pharmaceutical giants and markets. South Korea. South Korean industries are navigating the complex situation of U.S. tariffs. Despite a trade deal with the U.S., South Korea has reaffirmed that it does not include further opening of its rice market. Trump has stated that the U.S. has a great relationship with South Korea after the trade deal. Taiwan. The U.S. has proposed a 20% tariff on Taiwan, causing the Taiwan stock market to decline. U.S. officials have described the tariff as a temporary measure. South Africa. Struggling South African exporters are facing additional challenges due to U.S. steel tariffs. Trump is pressing ahead with a 30% tax. Lesotho. Lesotho's U.S. export tariff has been reduced from a threatened 50% to 15%, but its textile industry still faces challenges. Hong Kong. Hong Kong developer WHAM Properties and U.S. investment firm Angelo Gordon have jointly acquired a hotel in Mongkok for around a third of the original price. Canada. Canada's stock market, the TX, posted its biggest decline since April, as U.S. jobs data spooked investors. China is actively working to bolster its domestic market by allocating significant funds to stimulate consumer spending. The government is earmarking 69 billion yuan for a trade-in program aimed at boosting demand for consumer goods. Despite these efforts, a private poll indicates an unexpected contraction in China's factory activity. China has voiced strong opposition to protectionist measures and tariffs, emphasizing the detrimental effects of trade wars on all involved parties after the U.S. imposed new tariffs. This stance comes amid reports of substantial weekly losses in China and Hong Kong stocks, triggered by disappointing economic data and the impact of the U.S. tariffs. Regarding technology and business, a People's Daily article has requested Nvidia to verify the security of its H20 chip designed for China, following denials of alleged backdoor features. Apple has reported increased sales in mainland China, Hong Kong, and Taiwan, supported by consumer subsidies, with Greater China revenue rising nearly 4.4% to US $15.37 billion. The Hong Kong Exchanges and Clearing, HKEX, is modifying its IPO rules, reducing the minimum public float for mainland companies to HK $3 billion, or 10% of capital. Furthermore, Inari and China's Sanan are collaborating to acquire Netherlands' Lumilids for $139 million. Adpulse Group has expanded its presence in China by establishing offices in Beijing and Shanghai. In Hong Kong, a court has frozen an HSBC account linked to a lawsuit involving a multi-billion-dollar inheritance dispute and the CEO of Hangzhou Waha Group. This order will remain in effect until the resolution of a parallel lawsuit in Hangzhou or a further court order. A Hong Kong conglomerate subsidiary, facing US-China tensions, is seeking legal protection for businesses in Panama after its Panama Canal port assets contract encountered lawsuits. Hong Kong stocks are also experiencing their first weekly decline in a month, driven by worries about China's economic growth and corporate earnings. Meanwhile, in the United States, the Trump administration's tariff policies are reportedly having unintended negative consequences for some domestic businesses, as evidenced by the need for a Misco speaker factory in St. Paul, Min, to offshore some manufacturing due to tariffs on imports from China. Trump signed executive orders setting updated tariff rates on more than 65 countries. Finally, beyond economic and political matters, over 1,000 rabbis and Jewish leaders have issued a public letter condemning starvation in Gaza. India faces potential complications in trade negotiations, with the U.S. following the imposition of tariffs by the Trump administration, a move that could affect roughly $33 billion in Indian export. Despite this, Indian investors view the U.S. tariff threat as a negotiating strategy, even as Indian blue-chip companies marked their fifth straight week of losses due to tariffs and foreign capital outflows. The Indian government has affirmed its commitment to defending its national interests amid these U.S. tariff pressures. Economically, India's capital markets are expected to double in the next 5-7 years, according to NSE CEO Ashish Chauhan. However, the NSE settled a data sharing case with the market regulator for $460 million. Simultaneously, PNB Housing Finance saw a notable stock decline following the resignation of its CEO. Bond yields remained stable, showing a slight increase over the week, leading up to an upcoming RBI meeting. SEBI Chief Tuhin Kanta Pandey stressed the importance of greater vigilance in India's capital markets, calling on auditors and directors to take a more proactive role in preventing fraud by incorporating forensic accounting practices. In defense collaboration, an Indian company is partnering with Elbit to develop the Israeli Pulse Merls locally, potentially presenting competition for India's pinnacles. Reports suggest that Indian oil refiners are temporarily halting Russian oil purchases as they anticipate the U.S. tariffs. Shifting focus to the United States, the nation imposed new tariffs on India, Canada, and other countries, contributing to market volatility. These tariffs played a role in Wall Street's largest drop since May, which occurred alongside reports of employers scaling back hiring. The tariffs on India have sparked concerns about the prospects for a future India-US trade agreement. Some analysts speculate that the US is using these tariffs to discourage India's ties with Russia. European stocks suffered their worst session since April amid renewed tariff concerns. The downturn pushed European shares to 3-week and 4-week lows. European equity funds saw sharp outflows as investors absorbed numerous earnings reports. New US tariffs affecting many countries and a drop in healthcare stocks further contributed to the market decline. Japan recently secured global trade deals with the US, involving substantial investment pledges. The US, under President Donald Trump, adjusted tariff rates affecting Japan. In a major economic move, US steel was sold to Nippon Steel in Japan, a deal approved by President Trump despite earlier opposition, giving him a golden share in the company's future. Japan's stock market saw a downturn, with the Nikkei 225 falling by 0.57% due to tech investment worries, particularly concerning Tokyo Electron shares. However, Japan's Government Pension Investment Fund, GPF, announced a $68 billion investment gain in the first quarter. Asian stock markets have dipped amid concerns over President Trump's new tariffs on 68 countries and the European Union. Investor anxiety focuses on the potential repercussions for China's economy and global trade. These developments aligned with volatile trading on Wall Street, which also saw losses. Parallel to this, several Asian financial centers are showing increased urgency towards stablecoin adoption, possibly influenced by Trump's trade policies. South Korea's economy is under pressure from new tax proposals and U.S. trade relations. The stock market has declined due to concerns about increased U.S. tariffs and domestic tax hikes. While the U.S. and South Korea finalized tariff negotiations, reducing U.S. tariffs to 15%, South Korea denies any written pact. A top negotiator confirmed that further opening of the rice market to the U.S. was not discussed during trade talks. The data center market remains a focus. Lee has resumed discussions about labor's right to strike. In other news, President Yoon reportedly resisted questioning by lying on the floor in his underwear. Hyundai left South Korea after 5 years to protect user assets. Brazil is navigating complex economic currents, potentially needing to adjust its coffee production strategies. Simultaneously, Trump's tariff increases have rippled through the Brazilian economy, affecting the prices of key exports like coffee and beef. Mining giant Vale is experiencing challenges with its Brazil mine investment, as it has not yet met expectations for profitability. In other economic news, major beer companies are strategizing a large-scale sales initiative from Brazil to China, aiming to significantly increase export volumes. Adding a layer of geopolitical tension, Trump has publicly criticized Brazil's Supreme Court, claiming it poses a threat to U.S. sovereignty, even as some analysts question whether his tariff policies are genuinely benefiting America or simply alienating allies. The BRICS Economic Alliance, which includes Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, continues to be a point of contention, generating animosity from President Trump. Australia is facing economic headwinds, sparking worries about a potential decline in living standards for the current generation. The nation is actively pursuing innovation, with a particular focus on identifying the next CSL in the biotechnology field. The Australian Securities Exchange, ASX, remains a popular hub for exchange-traded funds, ETFs, attracting considerable investment from Australians. Despite this, the Australian stock market has experienced downturns, especially within the banking sector, which many investors view as overvalued. Adding to the financial landscape, major Australian banks are embarking on a mass refund program set to impact 770,000 customers. The Australian Competition and Consumer Commission, ACCC, is poised to scrutinize Bega and Friesland Campina's proposed acquisition of Fonterra's assets. Furthermore, government representatives recently conducted a visit to Australia's largest live cattle export market. Switzerland is facing economic headwinds as the United States considers imposing a 39% tariff on Swiss goods, especially luxury watches, which could significantly harm the nation's export-driven economy. Officials are actively negotiating for a reduction in the proposed tariff rate. The Swiss government is also focusing on diversifying its markets and promoting innovation to mitigate the potential economic impact. The Green Party president has voiced criticism of the Federal Council's handling of the situation, while the White House has accused Switzerland of being inflexible during negotiations. South Africa's rand saw fluctuations, dipping on tariff anxieties, but rebounding on softer jobs figures. The government is exploring support mechanisms for exporters facing tariff challenges. A survey revealed the vulnerability of many small South African businesses to potential failure. A disagreement has surfaced between South Africa's finance minister and the central bank head concerning the inflation target, with the finance minister clarifying there are no immediate plans to alter it. The Josie Local Wine Expo recently highlighted South African wines. Turning to Taiwan, the nation has warned of potential chip export limitations following South Africa's decision to downgrade diplomatic relations with the island. United Kingdom lenders are on alert as the Supreme Court prepares to rule on a case that could lead to compensation for millions of motorists over potentially unlawful auto finance agreements. Economically, UK manufacturing saw its smallest output contraction in half a year, as indicated by PMI data. Shifting its regulatory position, the Financial Conduct Authority, FCA, announced that the UK will allow retail access to crypto exchange traded notes, ETNs, starting in October 25. The conflict between Russia and Ukraine continues to generate tension. Nuclear submarines have reportedly been repositioned closer to Russia following threats allegedly made by a Putin aide. Despite the ongoing hostilities, Putin has voiced optimism regarding continued peace negotiations with Ukraine, especially considering the deadlines set by Trump. Adding to the strained relations, Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov has accused Ukraine of displaying cultural degradation bordering on savagery. Canada's stock market saw a dip as the S&P TSX Composite Index fell by 0.88%, reflecting market anxieties surrounding the implementation of new tariffs. Blue Ant Media completed its reverse takeover of Boat Rocker Media, paving the way for the merged company to start trading next week. The United States has implemented a new 40% tariff on goods shipped indirectly, an executive order signed by President Trump aimed at reducing reliance on Chinese manufacturers. These tariffs are projected to increase agricultural production costs for American farmers. The tariffs could also restrict their access to international markets and goods not manufactured domestically. Cambodia's garment and footwear industries experienced a positive turn as the U.S. decreased a previously suggested tariff from 49% to 19%. This adjustment alleviates fears regarding a potentially harmful effect on these crucial sectors of the Cambodian economy. The initial tariff proposal would have placed Cambodia among the nations with the highest rates in the area. Qatar is preparing to deliver 2 million tons of liquefied natural gas to Germany each year, commencing in 2026. This arrangement may be complicated by a new EU Directive on Rights and Climate, which some fear will add unnecessary expenses and red tape. Meanwhile, Qatar has committed to financing increased gas provisions to Syria, aimed at boosting the nation's electricity generation capacity. Amidst ongoing geopolitical tensions, Ukraine is at the center of reports suggesting Donald Trump intends to broker a peace deal with Moscow by August 8, potentially leading to a U.S.-Russia agreement that could impact Europe. Meanwhile, Russian forces have reportedly gained control of Chesivya. Turning to Saudi Arabia, the Public Investment Fund, PEF, is channeling a massive US$1 trillion into technology investments, significantly altering the global financial landscape. Simultaneously, Saudi Arabia is actively encouraging the growth of its manufacturing sector, presenting attractive prospects for companies looking to establish manufacturing facilities within the country. In Eastern Europe, Poland has solidified its defense capabilities through a substantial $6 billion arms deal with South Korea, securing the acquisition of 180 tanks. Moving to West Africa, Guinea's Samandu iron ore project has seen a winning consortium commit to responsible mining practices, aiming to ensure sustainable development. Facing economic headwinds, Pakistan is grappling with escalating inflation in July, primarily fueled by rising fuel costs. In a notable foreign policy decision, Slovenia has become the first European Union member to impose a ban on arms sales to Israel. Regarding financial markets, Greece is witnessing a significant change as Euronext moves to acquire the Athens stock exchange, ATHEX, a development poised to reshape the Greek financial market. Globally, stock markets have reacted negatively to the announcement of new tariff rates by Donald Trump, signaling concerns about potential trade disruption. Finally, in the realm of sports, Germany is being targeted by Eintracht Frankfurt with the goal of regaining its status as the top destination for young American soccer players. And that's a wrap for today's news, because even headlines need a nap. Stay curious, stay kind, and let the noise fade as you find your quiet. Take care, stay awesome, and I'll see you next time on WHAM Today.